record on this computer.
Now it does. Now we're all good.
Yes.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to say thank you to Assessor Torres for being part of this webinar. I'm Han Huel. I'm your AREA 2021 National Policy Chair. And I'm so excited that AREAA-SF Peninsula is hosting this informational session for your membership. Before we begin, I just wanted to give you a little brief background on Assessor Torres. Joaquin Torres was sworn in as San Francisco Assessor Recorder by Mayor Lennon Breed on February 8th of this year, filling the vacancy left by Carmen Chu, who was the previous assessor, who was nominated and installed now as San Francisco City Administrator. Prior to his appointment, Assessor Torres serves as the Director of San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development since 2018 and led citywide efforts to mitigate economic hardships on businesses and workers during COVID-19 pandemic. Assessor Torres is also the president of the San Francisco Housing Authority Commission, the leading oversight body as the authority and city implementing a re-envisioning process to rehabilitate over 3,400 units of public housing with $750 million in improvements, leading the transfer of ownership to affordable housing providers to best serve low-income community. Previously, Assessor Torres has served as the director of San Francisco Invest in Neighborhood Initiative, and liaison to San Francisco Latino American Indian communities and Supervisory District 9 and 11. Assessor Torres is a graduate of both Stanford University and NYU Tisch School of the Arts. And I'll let you take it over, Debbie.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And also we do have Holly with us from the Assessor's Office. Holly, go ahead and introduce yourself and say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Holly Lung. I'm the Director of Public Affairs in the Assessor Recorder's Office.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm Debbie Wong, and I am the 2021 Chair of AREA Government Affairs for San Francisco Peninsula. So let's get right into it. Thank you so much again, Joaquin, for being here today. We really appreciate you and appreciate your time. And I understand that your office has prepared a wonderful slideshow for us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie, and thank you to AREA for having me here today. And even more so, happy reopening here in San Francisco, in California. We have so much to be proud of, not just because it's Pride Month right now in San Francisco and across the country, but because of all of the sacrifice and commitment that people have displayed throughout the pandemic that got us to this huge milestone that we reached firmly yesterday in California. I know it's been a huge impact on so many of you, your members' families. And I just want to say, I hope that all of you are able to breathe a little bit freer, most especially without the requirement of wearing masks in so many situations these days. But because we are moving through this into a very strong recovery in San Francisco, and I'm very proud to have been part of that history, that movement, these accomplishments, but also assuming a leadership role here in San Francisco into the future. So with that, I wanted to say thank you all for having me today. My understanding is that open houses, showings can once again be held here without any capacity, distancing, or scheduling requirements in place. So I know from a technical standpoint, that's great for all of you and your clients. I just want to say that I am very proud to have joined also this assessor's office. Carmen Chu was an extraordinary leader in the office. And through our partnership over the years and most intensely throughout the pandemic in supporting her efforts as co-chair of the Economic Recovery Task Force, I got to see that expertise in close action. And even more so once I was able to meet with so many of the staff in the office, their commitment to service and their commitment to doing diligent work that benefits all of us. So I just want to say I'm very grateful to be here with all of you in that full perspective. Kenneth Chen here, I believe he should be sharing some of the co-host opportunities, so he's going to share his screen. We have a very, I'll try to move through this quickly to see if I can bring this down a little bit. Great. Thank you so much, Kenneth. And then I know that we're going to take a few moments to take some questions at the very end. So essentially what I'll go through briefly here is go over the essential role and updates from my office at the Assessor Recorder's Office, discuss some of the impacts of the recently passed Proposition 19, and our office's resources that are made available to you and your clients, including our signature event that we've expanded to now become a Family Wealth series. Holly Lung, who was introduced here earlier, is also in attendance to assist with any questions that you may want to put in the chat as I'm speaking. And if we don't get to any of your questions today, please do be sure to put them in the chat section regardless so that we can get back to you directly. So next slide, please, Kat. So as so many of you know, our office is responsible for identifying and valuing all property in San Francisco. We value all of that within the county. We apply all the extensions and exemptions that are required by state law. And we identify all of that newly constructed or sold properties. We revalue them to the current market value. And then we respond to all of those appeals so that we can protect that revenue for the benefit of the city. I just presented at the Board of Supervisors earlier this week on our budget. And that is an essential component of our work to make sure that we can put money in the city's purse through the commitment of so many property owners in the city to help fund the essential services that have been so important, most especially always, but most especially during this pandemic. We identified over 211,000 parcels in 2019 and 2020 with an assessed value of nearly $300 billion. For many years, even when we were sitting side by side in an office, we were not able to close the roll on time. And that led to large backlogs, delays, uncertainty with property tax bills. But now for the third year in a row, we have met our goal to roll and we are closing that roll again on time. I'm very proud of that. I know everyone's always nervous about that because it's still, despite those 3 years, so fresh. And we are very, very happy that that timely billing and collection of taxes will now be made possible because of our work for the tax collector. That's about $3.6 billion in property tax revenue that'll fund the city's fundamental services and education, our parks that I just jolted through earlier today on a bike. And again, that property tax is so valued because that is the single largest, most stable, secure source of funding for our city. On the recorder side, my favorite, of course, was seeing City Hall reopen and the marriages begin again. And of course, if you need those certificates, guide people to our office, but there is no wrong door. So please do make use of us as city departments within City Hall if you come by so that we can help direct you. And if that referral is not going well, if there's some confusion, do connect with us. The fundamentals of government service are making sure you can get what you need. You have clear answers, so make use of us in that way as well. No question is too small. We record about over 200 document types, about 150,000 documents a year. We collect the transfer tax through the recorder's office, 335 million. Most recently for fiscal year 2020, and then 69 million to date from our transfer tax audit program alone in total, 27 million of that in this fiscal year alone. That is to ensure that people know that we are paying attention. We are committed to ensuring that people pay their fair share. And again, that security and stability is supported because of all of that work. And that's very important to so much of us in the city and county of San Francisco, including myself. Next slide, please. Now, Proposition 19. It's been a very interesting experience for all of us here in recorders and assessors' offices up and down the state. A lot of grumbling that I've been hearing, but also just the rush that people felt that they were, the pressure that they were placed under due to the election, and then having to move very quickly into February 16th for the first round of implementation, and then again into April 1st. Our job is to make sure that there is clarity. So again, the intergenerational transfer exclusion, as I mentioned, went into effect on February 16th. The base year value transfers, I invite anyone to say that about 25 times fast. For people 55 years of age or older, those who were disabled, victims of wildfire or natural disasters. And as I mentioned, that became effective on April 1st of 2021. There are still outstanding questions. We have been working over time with our California Association of Assessors in conversation with sponsors of Proposition 19, Senator Hertzberg, the Senate Majority Leader, to ensure that those clarifications can be met, in addition to our conversations with the Board of Equalization. So we are doing that work as well. We've been putting up resource pages, frequently asked questions on our website, getting that out there in as many community meetings as we can within the city and county. The webinars alone, over 30,000 individual views. So we're, obviously a lot of interest based on those changes. On the recorder side of the house, we saw a 61% increase, as you can see here, in average number of documents that were received. So a lot of work that is still forthcoming with regards to Prop 19, but we are, I hope you are hearing and feeling, on it. Next slide, please. So in addition to our office with the other 57 counties, a lot of the frequently asked questions that taxpayers are asking us, we're constantly just working with our communities on those. We're tracking that legislation, as I mentioned, Senate Bill 668, constitutional amendment from the Assembly 9, and then Senate Bill 539. And Holly would be very happy to share the details of those with you if you have any questions. In addition to Senate Bill 668, which would add new language to the Revenue Taxation Code with seeking to delay intergenerational transfer provisions of Prop 19, 2 years after that implementation date. So just wanted to share some of that information with you. Questions that we've been receiving, for example, are can a homeowner claim a Prop 19 base year value transfer when they either sold their home or repurchased the replacement property before the date? So we've been going through those items. If that SB 539 does pass, that would change some of the dynamics there. It would then apply Prop 19 before, if the homeowner sells or buys before April 1st, but not both.
Interesting. No, that's very, very interesting that you mentioned that there's, I'm really glad to hear and see that there's a lot of work towards not only the implementation, proper implementation, but the answering of all the questions, because we get these questions all the time as practitioners, and we're like, let me go log on and find out what's happening now. So
yeah, well, I just want to share that is the experience across the board. There is some certainty, but as you go deeper and deeper into those nitty-gritty items that you're talking about, Debbie, I mean, that's where really the rubber meets the road for us. There are a lot of answers to some of the questions that people are asking, but still, just don't be shy about asking them. I mean, that's the work that we all have to do. And quite frankly, it helps out with advocacy. We put some of those examples on a piece of paper in front of Senator Hertzberg so to push on those items. So
fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you. I know that at the beginning of the year, there was like a mad dash to have everybody change their trust, and everybody was, really crazy. We had, I have several attorney friends that opened up pop-up offices just to handle all of the requests, the changes for trust, and then have them recorded. I mean, it was just incredible. And then there was the other half of us who were just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I mean, and that leads to the next slide that I have, which I'll just briefly do two more here. Kenneth, could I have the next slide, please? Which is around the education component. Letting people know about the information that's important to them, their home's their most valuable asset they've worked so hard for, and making sure that they have the financial information that they need to be successful to both manage that wealth as that asset today and think about how to plan better for the future and understand for themselves exactly how best they want to leverage that resource and that asset. So again, all of these foundation series that we'll be providing digitally at first before we figure out how best to acclimate to this new environment we're in now with the restrictions being lifted for these items in July. Some of them might be in person, might be flexible. We'd love to hear from you on that about what you and your clients are comfortable with as well. We're doing all of this in real time, but just making sure that we get this information out there. And then finally, next slide, please. We're open for business. So as I mentioned in the beginning, please don't hesitate to come on by. We are checking out. They've already people who are coming back into the office to do their research. I was up. I don't know if anyone saw the lights that were flashing last night, shortly after, right before sunset, and afterwards, up on Twin Peaks. I got to control some of those. That was fun. We're celebrating right now, and it's great to see people inside City Hall getting married, conducting business, and us being available to serve you. So that's what we're going to continue doing. Don't hesitate to reach out, 554-5596, of course, or sfassessor.org, where you can find this information as well and reach out to us for any questions.
Well, one thing, I'm a big admirer of the website that you are all putting together and have provide all of the detailed information with regards to education, and so that the customer or our customers or the people that are thinking about investing in real estate in San Francisco can really educate themselves and get more information. So it's really fantastic. We really appreciate that. Han, did you want to go ahead and explain anything else or share anything else before I ask some questions?
Nope, all yours, Debbie.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So I guess what I did is I collected some questions from membership, and one of the questions are, what are some of the biggest post-pandemic challenges that are facing your office at the moment?
I think it's some of the items that I appreciate that question. Thank you. I think some of the biggest challenges right now are acclimating back to this new hybrid of coming back to work. You know, it all comes back to what I'll be advocating for through the budget are those technology improvements that allow us to operate and operate better. That only works if the human side of it works. So us coming back to work, understanding what is safe, all those outstanding questions that we have. I put my mask on public transit. Do I in a Lyft or an Uber? What do I do in the grocery store? What do I do when I come back to work? Why is Cal OSHA telling me something different than what you're telling me here at the workplace? So just being open and understand, right? All of those questions that people have. I think that is one of the biggest challenges of just making people feel safe, being honest and open about what we do and do not know. That was so important throughout the pandemic as well. And that was a priority for me to make sure that we were being upfront about what we did and did not know, so that everyone feels comfortable in the collective uncertainty. And of course, you know, that we're examining those questions fervently and coming back with answers when we have them, but being honest about when we don't as well. So I think that's a big challenge just on the human side. And then also, what will be the ultimate change? Right now, many of us are talking about 3 days remote or 3 days in the office, and then, or conversely, 3 days remote, 2 days in the office. How does that end up working out over time? How do we maintain that public serving operation that we're very proud of, in addition to maintaining that feeling of the whole of the entire office? You have an assessor division, a recorder division. It's so often that people, even within one office, don't talk to each other, let alone the city as a whole. So providing that coherence, I think, is very important as well. And that's a goal of ours. And then I think just Prop 19, making sure that people feel that they understand and are educated about what's important to them. And then how does one, in a real estate environment, in a assessment environment, in a recording environment, an evaluation environment, thinking about cost-based approaches, income-based approaches, comparative sales approaches, how does that translate? How can that translate for an office, for everyone who is doing that work, to meet the call for advancing racial equity for us as communities of color? That is for hiring, that is for making people feel welcome and included in terms of how policy is driven within an office. But it also matters about what subject matters are we willing to speak to, what questions are we willing to ask to help be part of that, and searching for it. It's not always, I think, obvious in the ways that we can do so. So that working those issues out over time will be important to me, and but I know that'll be challenging because it doesn't always make sense. You know, we're very under the radar office. Most people have no idea what the assessor recorder does, so it's a lot of fun for me to help people. Right.
Well, that's why we wanted to have you on, because I think it's fascinating what you do and what you guys are all about. So before we let you go, because I know that you have to get to your next meeting, but I wanted to ask you, what would you like for real estate practitioners to know about listing and selling property in San Francisco today, in today's environment? What would you want us practitioners to be aware of?
Oh, I think that what I would be aware of is that government needs your help. What I want you to be aware of is that government needs your help. That don't assume that we are the end all be all knowers of information. That is driven by what you can help provide us with, what your experiences are, how you're dealing with your clients, how you're dealing with your colleagues, what metrics that you're seeing, so that we understand how best to be responsive as a government entity. That, to me, I think, is the most important aspect of all of this. So much was learned through the pandemic because the experiences on the ground, the responsibility of folks like me in my former role, leading economic and workforce development, was to share that information to the collective system. That's only possible if you're having those conversations. So being with you all today and making this connection so you know that you can share information with us on issues that you want us to check out, so we can answer the question even if there isn't movement. That's what I want you to be aware of in terms of the relationship with government. And then also knowing that we're going to be following the numbers, and our fairness that we apply to assess value is going to be based on that value. And again, the provisions, please remember that those provisions are dictated by the state of California, the Revenue and Taxation Code, in addition, of course, to the state constitution. And the state laws and all of the local laws that apply to us. So being fair is another component of doing the work, but it is based on that law. And it is based on that precedent. And where we can find those temporary opportunities as the data allows us to do so, then we will do that diligent work. But also I need to make sure that that value is being collected for the city as well, so that the parks that we enjoy, the schools that we want to see open in the fall, here, the public schools we want to see open in the fall in San Francisco, the relief programs that have been essential to our recovery and our strategies for public health and well-being, that those things can continue. And so I think about all of those programs when I'm doing this work as well, when I consider what is fair, the law, the benefit to the public, and to all of us collectively for the benefit of this beautiful place we call home here in San Francisco.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness you're there. You're doing a fantastic job. I know that you're new to the job, but man, just listening to you speak, we can listen to you all day long. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We are at time. And again, if anyone has any questions or concerns, we'll go ahead and post up the links for the educational webinars and then also to the assessor's office so that you can ask any questions that you may have directly. Assessor Torres, thank you so much for your time. It's been delightful to have you with us here today. Thank you so much, Han, for putting this together, and Holly for helping us get on Mr. Torres's calendar, and for Kenneth, great presentation. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you again for joining us here with AREA.
Thank you so much to AREA members, Han and you, Debbie. Thank you very, very much for having us.
All right, take care of everybody. Bye-bye.